A rainy night, an empty road outside the city. A man in a pickup truck stops when he sees flickering police lights ahead. He steps out and freezes. A female officer lies motionless beside her crashed patrol car. Blood everywhere. She whispers weakly back up. They're not coming. He immediately rips off his jacket, cuts her seatbelt with a knife, and presses hard on the wound. As she starts to fade, he says calmly, "Stay with me, I've seen worse. You're not dying tonight." 1 hour later, hospital room. The police captain stares at her perfectly stitched wound, hands trembling. Who the hell did this? That's military precision. Jack Rowan, 40 years old, single father. He wakes up at 5:30 every morning in a small house on the edge of town, the kind of place where neighbors wave but don't ask questions. In the kitchen, he packs lunch for his daughter Ella. She's 10. Bright eyes, always asks why he has scars on his hands. He never tells her the truth. The truth is complicated. Jack Rowan used to be someone else, a combat medic in special forces. The kind of soldier they sent when things went wrong, in places that didn't exist on any map. He saved lives under fire, stitched wounds in the dark, kept men breathing when death was already reaching for them. But that was before the explosion that killed his wife, Sarah, during a routine traffic stop 5 years ago. Before he realized that the drug cartel operating in their county was the same one he'd encountered overseas. Before he walked away from everything. Now he drives a delivery truck. Hauls supplies to rural stores, lives quietly, raises Ella alone. On his wrist he wears a black rubber bracelet, faded letters carved into it, "Never leave a fallen." It's 11 p.m. when Jack finishes his last delivery run. Rain hammers the windshield. The road through the forest is empty, dark. Most people avoid this route at night. Jack doesn't mind the silence. Then he sees it flashing lights, red and blue. Barely visible through the rain. A patrol car overturned, smoke rising from the hood. Jack slows down. Every instinct tells him to call 911 and keep driving. Don't get involved, you're not that person anymore. But he stops, he always stops. Jack grabs a flashlight and steps into the rain. The wreckage is worse up close. The car flipped twice, at least broken glass everywhere. The driver's door crushed inside. Slumped against the steering wheel is a young woman. Police uniform badge reflects his flashlight. Officer Sarah Miles, she's 29. Been on the force 18 months. Tonight she was following a lead on the cartel alone. Big mistake. Her eyes flutter open, blood runs down her face. Her vest is torn, a deep laceration across her abdomen. She tries to speak, barely a whisper. Backup called them 20 minutes ago. Jack checks her pulse. Weak breathing, shallow, she's losing blood fast. He pulls out his phone. No signal, the forest blocks everything. Sarah grabs his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. If you run, they'll find you too, they're watching. Jack looks at her, really looks at her. He sees the fear, the pain, the resignation. He sees his wife, not the same face. But the same uniform, the same situation, the same chances slipping away. He takes a breath and says, "Then I guess we both fight." Jack runs back to his truck. In the back, hidden under a tarp, is an old medical kit. Military grade. He kept it, don't know why. Maybe for this moment. He returns to the car. Sarah's eyes are closing. "Hey, stay with me. What's your name?" Sarah. "Okay, Sarah, I'm Jack. I'm going to get you out of here, but you need to stay awake. Talk to me. Tell me why you became a cop." She tries to smile through the pain. Wanted to make a difference, good reason. Jack assesses the damage. The wound needs immediate pressure. The car could explode any second. Gasoline smell thick in the air. He makes a decision, time to be that person again. Jack works fast. First, he cuts Sarah's seatbelt with his tactical knife. The blade is old but sharp. Muscle memory takes over. His hands don't shake. Sarah groans as he shifts her weight. The wound is worse than he thought. Deep puncture. Possibly internal bleeding. This is going to hurt, he says. Everything already hurts. Fair point. From his medical kit, he pulls out hemostatic gauze, a trauma bandage, and surgical clamps. Tools he hasn't touched in years. They feel familiar in his hands. He packs the wound. Sarah screams. He doesn't stop. Can't stop. If he stops, she dies. Talk to me, Sarah. Who did this to you? Through gritted teeth. Was following a suspect. Cartel Spaz's connection. They ran me off the road. Jack's jaw tightens. The cartel. Always the cartel. How many? 2 vehicles, maybe 6 men. They left me here. They think you're already dead. Let's keep it that way. He wraps the trauma bandage tight. Field dressing field. Not pretty, but effective. The bleeding slows. Sarah's breathing stabilizes slightly, but they're not safe yet. The gas smell is stronger now. The car is leaking fuel. One spark and they're both gone. Can you move? Jack asks. I don't know. You're gonna have to try on 3, 1, 2, 3. He lifts her. She's light. Too light. The adrenaline helps. He carries her away from the wreck. 20 feet, 30, 50. Behind them, the patrol car's engine sparks get down. Jack throws himself over Sarah as the car explodes. The fireball lights up. The forest heat washes over them. Metal shrapnel whistles overhead. For a moment, everything is fire and noise. Then silence, just the rain, the crackling flames. Sarah looks up at Jack, his face lit by the burning wreckage. You're insane. I get that a lot. He checks her wound again, still holding good. He pulls out his phone. Still no signal. They're too deep in the forest. We need to get you to the road. Ambulance won't find us here. I can't walk. I know I'll carry you. Jack lifts her again. Fireman's carry. She's dead weight now. Shock setting in. He needs to move fast. The road is half a mile away, uphill in the rain with a dying woman on his shoulders. Jack has done worse. He starts walking. Every step is agony. Not for him, for her. Each movement jostles the wound. Sarah whimpers, but doesn't complain. Tell me about your daughter, she says weakly. What's your jacket? Has a drawing in the pocket from Ella. Jack almost smiles. Of course she noticed, even half dead, still a cop. She's tense smart, too smart. Keeps asking why I won't teach her how to stitch? Why won't you? Because I don't want her to need that skill. Sarah goes quiet for a moment. Then your wife. Was she a cop? Jack's step falters just for a second. How did you know? The way you looked at me like you've seen this before. She was died 5 years ago. Same kind of setup, cartel ambush. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just stay alive, that's all I ask. They reach the road. Jack lays Sarah down gently. He flags down a passing truck. The driver takes one look and calls 911. 15 minutes later, sirens, flashing lights, an ambulance and 3 police cars. Paramedics rush to Sarah. They cut open her uniform. See the wound, see the field dressing. One of them, a veteran EMT named Rodriguez, stares at the stitching. Who did this? The other paramedic shakes his head. This is military-grade trauma care. Whoever did this saved her life. She'd have bled out in 10 minutes without it. Police officers surround Jack. Questions fly. What's your name? Jack Rowan. Did you see who did this? No, I just found her. You a doctor? No, then how the hell did you? I used to be a medic long time ago. The police captain arrives. Captain Marcus Stone, 30-year veteran. He looks at Sarah being loaded into the ambulance, then at Jack, then at the exploded patrol car in the distance. You carried her half a mile. More or less through a potential crime scene. She was dying. Didn't have time to worry about evidence. Captain Stone studies Jack, really studies him. Sees the old scars. The calm demeanor. The way he stands like someone who's been in combat. What's your full name? Jack Rowan, you military. Jack hesitates, then was not anymore. What branch does it matter? It does to me. Jack meets his eyes. Special Forces combat medic. Honorably discharged 5 years ago. Captain Stone nodded slowly. Like pieces are clicking together. We're going to need a statement tomorrow. Right now, I need to get home to my daughter. Jack turns to leave. Captain Stone calls after him. Mr. Rowan, thank you. You saved one of ours tonight. Jack pauses, doesn't turn around. Just did what anyone should do. He walks to his truck. As he opens the door, he notices something on his wrist. The bracelet is gone. Must have fallen off during the rescue. He looks back at the ambulance. Sarah is being loaded inside. She's conscious, looking at him. Their eyes meet across the distance. She raises one hand weakly. Wrapped around her wrist is his black bracelet. Never leave a fallen. Jack nods once, then drives away into the night. 3 days later, Sarah Miles wakes up in County General Hospital. White walls, beeping machines. Pain medication coursing through her veins. Captain Stone sits beside her bed, his face serious. How are you feeling? Sarah tries to sit up, winces like I got hit by a truck. What happened to the case? Forget the case. Tell me about the man who saved you. Sarah closes her eyes, remembering tall. Maybe 6'2". Dark hair with some gray 40s. Calm under pressure. Really calm, like he'd done it 1,000 times. What did he say to you? That I wasn't dying tonight. That he'd seen worse. She pauses, Captain. Whoever he was, he knew exactly what he was doing. Military trauma care. Perfect field stitching. He carried me half a mile through the rain. Captain Stone pulls out a tablet, shows her a photo. Is this him? Sarah stares at the screen. Jack Rowan, driver's license photo. Yes, that's him. Who is he? That's what we're trying to figure out. The investigation moves fast. Detective Maria Reeves traces the truck registration. Finds Jack's address. Small house, quiet neighborhood, nothing suspicious. She runs his background. What she finds makes her call Captain Stone immediately. Captain, you need to see this. They gather in the conference room. Jack's military record displays on the screen. Most of it is redacted, black bars everywhere. Classified missions. But some details remain. Jack Rowan. Special Forces combat medic. Deployed 7 times to classified locations. Silver Star recipient. Expert in tactical medicine and emergency trauma care. Honorably discharged 5 years ago. After his wife was killed, Captain Stone reads the name of Jack's deceased wife. Sarah Rowan, patrol officer. Killed during a drug interdiction that went wrong. Detective Reeves pulls up the case file. The suspects were never caught, but intelligence suggested cartel involvement. The same cartel operating in their county right now. Jesus. Captain Stone whispers he's been hunting them. Or avoiding them. Reeves counters he left the service. Became a civilian. If he wanted revenge, he would have taken it by now. Maybe he's waiting for the right moment. 2 detectives drive to Jack's house morning. 8 a.m. Jack is in the kitchen making pancakes. Ella sits at the table doing homework. Normal, peaceful. The doorbell rings. Jack knows who it is before he opens the door. He saw the unmarked car pull up. Mr. Rowan, that's me. I'm Detective Reeves. This is Detective Park. We'd like to ask you some questions about the incident 3 nights ago. I already gave a statement. We have some follow-up questions. May we come in? Jack glances back at Ella. She's watching, curious. Give me a minute. He walks back to the kitchen, kneels beside Ella. Honey, I need to talk to these people. Can you go to your room and finish your homework? Am I in trouble? No, I am a little, but it's okay. Ella looks worried. Jack kisses her forehead. Everything's fine, I promise. She leaves. Jack lets the detectives inside. They sit in the living room. Small space. Modest furniture. But Detective Reeves notices something on the wall. A shadow box inside medals and ribbons, Purple Heart. bronze star, and in the center, a silver star. She points, that's quite a collection. Jack doesn't look old, Life. Detective Park opens his notebook. Mr. Rowan, we've reviewed your military record. You're a Special Forces combat medic. Expert in trauma care. That's not a question. Why didn't you mention that when we asked how you saved Officer Miles? You asked if I was a doctor. I said no. You asked if I was a medic. I said I used to be. Answered honestly. You were being evasive. Jack meets his eyes. I was being private. There's a difference. Captain Stone enters the house. The detectives didn't expect him. He must have been waiting outside. Mr. Rowan, we need to talk. About what? About why a decorated Special Forces medic is driving a delivery truck in the middle of nowhere. Jack stands. Is that illegal? No, but it's interesting. Especially when that same medic saves a police officer investigating the same cartel that killed his 5 years ago. The room goes silent. Jack's expression doesn't change, but his hands tighten slightly. I don't know what you're implying. Captain Stone steps closer. I'm not implying anything, I'm stating facts. Your wife, Sarah, was killed by cartel members during a traffic stop. The case went cold. You left the military immediately after, moved here, stayed quiet, and now you save an officer. Investigating that same organization. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences. Jack's voice drops. What do you want from me? Captain Stone pulls out a chair, sits down. Officer Miles is alive because of you. But she's still in danger. The cartel knows she survived. They'll come for her again. Then protect her. That's your job. We're trying, but we're outgunned. These people have military-grade weapons, tactical training. They know how we operate. We need someone who thinks like they do. Jack shakes his head. Number. We need a tactical consultant. Someone who understands combat medicine, ambush tactics, counterinsurgency. I said no. Why? Jack points toward the hallway where Ella disappeared. Because I have a daughter who needs a father, not a corpse. Detective Reeves speaks softly. Mr. Rowan, if we don't stop him, how many more officers die? How many more wives lose their husbands? How many more daughters lose their fathers? Jack looks at her, then at the medals on the wall. He thinks about Sarah Miles, young, brave, bleeding out in the rain. He thinks about his wife's same uniform, same commitment, same faith. He thinks about Ella. What would she want him to do? The answer comes to him clearly. She'd want him to make sure no other kid loses their parent the way she lost her mother. Jack takes a breath. I'll consult, nothing more. I don't go into the field. I don't carry a weapon. I analyze tactics and teach your people how to stay alive. That's it. Captain Stone extends his hand. Deal. They shake. Detective Reeves smiles. When can you start? Tomorrow, but we do this my way. I train your officers in tactical combat medicine. I review your operational plans, and if I say something's too dangerous, you listen. Agreed. Jack walks them to the door as they leave. Captain Stone turns. One more thing. Officer Miles asked me to give you this. He hands Jack a small box. Inside is the black bracelet, cleaned, polished, and a note in shaky handwriting. Never leave a fallen. Thank you for not leaving me. Sarah M. Jack stares at it for a long moment. Then he puts it back on his wrist where it belongs. 2 weeks later, Jack stands in the police training room. 15 officers watch him. Sarah Miles sits in front, still healing but determined. Captain Stone introduces. This is Jack Rowan, former Special Forces medic. He'll teach you how to survive. Jack steps forward. The first 60 seconds in a crisis determine if you live or die. I'm here to make sure you live. 3 hours of training, tourniquets wound, packing pressure points. Jack corrects their technique. Professional patient after class. Sarah approaches. Thank you for everything. How's recovery? Slow but steady. She pauses. Captain told me about your wife, did he? I'm sorry you couldn't have known. Is that why you saved me? Jack thinks I saved you because it was right. But yes, I saw her in you. Same uniform, same courage. Sarah's eyes water. We're closing in on the cartel, raiding their warehouse in 3 days. Captain wants you there as tactical consultant. Jack hesitates. I don't go into the field. Just observe, your judgment could save lives. He thinks of the young officers, good people. Inexperienced. Fine, but I stay in the command vehicle deal. 3 days later, dawn, 20 officers surround a warehouse. Jack sits with Captain Stone in the mobile command center. Radio chatter everywhere. Team 1 in position, Team 2 ready. Team 3 holding. Stone looks at Jack as vice. Jack studies the screen. Rear exit probably rigged to explode. Keep Team 3 back, that's where they'll run. How do you know? Because it's what I do. The raid begins. Flashbangs, shouting chaos. Inside, 6 cartel members are surrounded. Outgunned, their leader Vargas runs for the back door. Just as Jack predicted. Team 3 waits. Freeze, police. Vargas pulls out a detonator. Smiles come closer and we all die. Sarah's voice on radio. Captain, he has explosives. Jack grabs the mic. Sarah, see a wire from the detonator? Yes, red wire. Where does it connect? Pressure switch on the door frame. Jack's training kicks in. Don't let him touch that door. Building will blow. Take the shot. Silence, then Sarah, steady copy, 1 shot, clean. Vargas drops detonator, falls harmlessly. Target down, building secure. Officers emerge, all suspects arrested. 0 casualties. Stone exhales, too close. Jack nods, always is. Later at the debriefing, everyone's exhausted but alive. Captain Stone addresses the room. We took down a major cartel operation tonight. No officers killed or injured. That's because of preparation, training, and 1 man who refused to let us go in blind. He looks at Jack. Jack Rowan reminded us why we wear this badge. To protect, to serve, to never leave a fallen. Applause fills the room. Officers who doubted him now stand and salute. Respect earned. Sarah approaches with something in her hands. Jack's Silver Star medal. This belongs at the station, so everyone remembers what real courage looks like. Jack tries to refuse. I didn't do this for recognition. Sarah smiles. I know, that's exactly why you deserve it. She pins it to the wall of honor, right next to fallen officers. Jack stares at it. His old life and new purpose finally connected. Captain Stone shakes his hand. You save my officer, then you save my team. We owe you everything. Jack looks around the room. Young faces, grateful faces. Alive faces. You don't owe me anything, just promise me one thing. What's that? Go home safe to your families. Every single night, Stone nods. Well, that's our promise. As Jack leaves the station, officers line up a corridor of respect. Each one nods as he passes. Sarah walks him out. You changed everything here. You know that, right? Jack looks back at the station. Lights on, officers inside safe. No, I just reminded them what they already knew. He gets in his truck and drives home to Ella. To peace, to purpose. The hero who never wanted to be one. 1 year later, Jack stands in front of a small classroom. 20 civilians sit before him. Nurses, teachers, truck drivers, regular people who want to learn. Emergency medical care. The sign above the door reads, Rowan, First Response Training, because everyone should know how to save a life. Ellis is in the back row, 13 now, watching her father teach. Pride in her eyes, Jack demonstrates CPR on a dummy. Most people freeze in emergencies, that's normal. But if you know what to do, you can override that fear. Muscle memory takes over. A student raises her hand. What if we make a mistake? Jack smiles. Then you make a mistake. But doing something is always better than doing nothing. I've made plenty of mistakes. People still lived. After class, Sarah Miles enters. She's not in uniform. Civilian clothes. She graduated to detective last month. Hey, stranger. Jack looks up. Detective Miles, congratulations on the promotion. Thanks. Couldn't have done it without you. They walk outside. The sun is setting, golden light across the parking lot. Sarah hands him a folder. Thought you'd want to see this. We closed your wife's case. DNA evidence finally came through. 3 arrests, all connected to the cartel. Jack opens the folder, sees the mug shots, the men who killed Sarah. He feels nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just closure. Thank you, it doesn't bring her back. No, but it means she didn't die for nothing. They stand in comfortable silence. Then Sarah asks, you ever think about coming back? Full-time consulting with the department. Jack shakes his head. This is where I belong, teaching civilians. Giving them skills they hopefully never need. It's quieter, simpler, less dangerous, that too. Ella walks out, sees Sarah, waves. Hi, Sarah. Hey, kiddo, your dad teaching you all his secrets? Some. He won't teach me the really cool stuff. Until I'm older. Jack ruffles her hair. Because the really cool stuff is also the really scary stuff. They watch Ella get in the truck. Sarah turns to Jack. You know what I realized? You never stop being a soldier. You just change your mission. Jack considers this. Maybe, or I finally figured out what I was fighting for all along. What's that? Not glory, not revenge? Just making sure good people get to go home. To their families. Sarah nods. Understands. She hugs him briefly. The world needs more people like you. The world needs more people like everyone. We all have something to give. She leaves. Jack walks to his truck. Ella is playing music, singing off-key. He climbs in, starts the engine. On the dashboard, his black bracelet hangs from the mirror. The words visible, never leave a fallen. He doesn't wear it anymore. Doesn't need to, because he's not leaving anyone behind. Not anymore, not ever. He drives home as the sun sets. His daughter beside him, his purpose clear. A former soldier, a single father, a teacher, a man who stopped at an accident and changed everything. Subscribe if you believe courage doesn't retire.
Billionaire pretends to sleep to test black maid's kid and freezes seeing what she does. Thomas Richardson closed his eyes and slumped forward in his leather chair, pretending to sleep. The billionaire scattered $1,700 bills across his office floor as a test, and he had no idea that what happened next would expose a 20-year-old betrayal that would destroy everything he thought he knew. 9-year-old Annabelle Mason stepped into the room and spotted the money. Thomas watched through barely opened eyes, expecting her to pocket the cash like everyone else who saw him as an opportunity to exploit. But Annabelle didn't steal anything. Instead, she carefully collected each bill, organized them into neat stacks on his desk, and left a handwritten note. Found your money on the floor, Mr. Thomas. I put it back on your desk so it wouldn't get lost. Thomas stared at the note, his hands trembling. This little girl's simple act of honesty was about to set off a chain of events that would uncover the most devastating betrayal of his entire life and reveal a truth so shocking that it would change everything. If you want to see how one child's honesty exposed decades of corruption and changed multiple lives forever, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. But what would you have done if you were 9 years old and found that money? Let me know in the comments below, because Annabelle's choice was about to reveal something that had been hidden for 20 years. Thomas Richardson wasn't always the suspicious, guarded man he'd become. At 58, the tech mogul had built an empire worth billions, but recent betrayals in business left him questioning everyone's motives. His wife Sarah passed away just 18 months earlier, leaving him alone in a mansion that felt more like a fortress than a home. The woman responsible for keeping that mansion running was Carmen Mason, a 35-year-old single mother who approached her work with quiet dignity. What Thomas didn't know was that Carmen held a business degree from State University, but life forced her into cleaning houses to make ends meet. Carmen's daughter Annabelle was unlike most 9-year-olds. While other kids her age played video games, Annabelle spent her afternoons helping her mother clean, always asking thoughtful questions about the world around her. She dreamed of becoming a teacher someday, often practicing by reading stories to her stuffed animals and explaining math problems to anyone who would listen. The man who recommended Carmen for the housekeeping position was Knox Henry, Thomas's 55-year-old vice president who worked alongside him for over 20 years. Knox earned Thomas's complete trust through decades of what appeared to be loyal service. Thomas considered Knox more than an employee. He was practically family, which made Knox's recommendation of Carmen seem like a gesture of genuine care. But Thomas developed a habit of testing people, especially after a series of devastating betrayals had cost him millions and nearly destroyed his company. Employees had stolen trade secrets, friends had sold him out to competitors, and even family members had tried to manipulate him for money. The pain of these betrayals had turned Thomas into someone who trusted no one completely. There were moments when Thomas would mention his former business partner Michael, a brilliant man who helped him build the foundation of his empire. But whenever Michael's name came up, Thomas would quickly change the subject, his jaw tightening with what looked like guilt or regret. He never explained what happened to Michael, only that his old partner had died years ago under circumstances Thomas refused to discuss. The scattered money test had been Knox Henry's suggestion. Knox casually mentioned that it was important to know if the people in Thomas's home could be trusted completely, especially around his personal belongings and sensitive business documents. Thomas reluctantly agreed, setting up the test that would determine whether Carmen and Annabelle Mason could remain in his life or if they would join the long list of people who had disappointed him. Annabelle's honest act with the money had shaken Thomas more than he expected, but it also sparked his curiosity about Knox Henry's recommendation. Thomas decided to dig deeper into why his trusted vice president specifically suggested Carmen's cleaning agency. What he discovered made his blood run cold. Knox Henry had been running a scheme for years, systematically hiring minority workers through discount agencies and pocketing the difference between what Thomas paid and what the workers actually received. Carmen was supposed to receive $15 an hour, but the agency only paid her $9, while Knox Henry collected a kickback from the agency owner. This wasn't just about Carmen. Dozens of families had been exploited this way. As Thomas investigated, he found himself watching Carmen and Annabelle more closely during their daily routines. The little girl would arrive every day after school, immediately starting her homework at the kitchen table before helping her mother clean. Annabelle never asked for anything, never touched anything that wasn't hers, and always left areas cleaner than she found them. The child's integrity seemed to run bone deep, which made Thomas question his own suspicions about people. Something about Carmen nagged at Thomas's memory, though he couldn't pinpoint what it was. Her mannerisms, the way she held herself, even her voice carried an odd familiarity that he couldn't shake. She was clearly educated, using vocabulary and speaking patterns that seemed inconsistent with someone who cleaned houses for a living. One afternoon, while organizing Carmen's paperwork for a small raise he wanted to give her, Thomas overheard her on a phone call during her break. Carmen was explaining to someone that she dropped out of college when her father died suddenly, leaving her family with nothing. She was just 19, forced to abandon her business degree to work multiple jobs and support her younger siblings. The mention of her father's death triggered something in Thomas's memory, but he still couldn't place the connection. That evening, driven by an instinct he couldn't explain, Thomas went to his study and began pulling out old photo albums and business documents he hadn't looked at in years. Box after box of memories sat before him, 20 years of partnerships, deals, and relationships that had shaped his empire. As he flipped through faded photographs from company events and business meetings, Thomas's hands began to shake. There, in a picture from 2005, stood a younger version of himself next to his business partner, both men smiling and shaking hands after closing their biggest deal. But it wasn't the memory of success that made Thomas's heart race. It was the realization that was slowly forming in his mind. If you're wondering what Thomas discovered in those old photos that changed everything, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will leave you speechless. What do you think Thomas saw in those photographs that made him question everything? Drop your theories in the comments, because the truth was more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Thomas grabbed Carmen's employee file with trembling hands, scanning through the paperwork until he found what he was looking for. There it was, in small print on her original application. Carmen Williams Mason. Her maiden name was Williams. The room seemed to spin around Thomas as the pieces crashed together in his mind. Michael Williams had been his business partner 20 years ago, the brilliant engineer who helped him build the foundation of his tech empire. Michael had been more than a partner. He'd been Thomas's closest friend, a man with innovative ideas and unwavering integrity who had trusted Thomas completely. But their partnership ended in disaster. Client after client suddenly pulled out of deals, claiming Michael made promises he couldn't keep. Documents surfaced showing Michael allegedly stealing proprietary information. His reputation crumbled overnight, and despite Thomas's initial attempts to defend him, the evidence seemed overwhelming. Michael Williams had been forced out of the company he'd helped build. His name destroyed in the industry. What Thomas never knew was that Knox Henry orchestrated every bit of it. Knox systematically forged documents, bribed clients to make false accusations, and planted evidence that made Michael look like a thief and a liar. Knox had been jealous of Michael's brilliance and his close relationship with Thomas, so he'd methodically destroyed the man who threatened his position as Thomas's right hand. Michael Williams died 5 years later, alone and penniless, still believing that his best friend Thomas abandoned him when he needed support most. He died thinking Thomas had chosen Knox Henry's lies over their 20-year friendship. And now, the devastating truth hit Thomas like a physical blow. Carmen Mason wasn't just any housekeeper. She was Carmen Williams, Michael's daughter. The little girl he'd been testing with scattered money was Michael Williams's granddaughter. Thomas had been unknowingly making the daughter of his betrayed partner clean his floors while the man who destroyed her father sat in the executive suite, collecting millions in salary and bonuses. The realization became even more sickening as Thomas understood Knox Henry's true manipulation. Knox hadn't randomly recommended Carmen's cleaning agency. He specifically orchestrated her hiring, knowing exactly who she was. For Knox, it wasn't enough to have destroyed Michael Williams 20 years ago. He wanted to watch Michael's family struggle and suffer, getting some twisted satisfaction from seeing the daughter of his victim reduced to cleaning the home of the empire her father had helped build. Thomas collapsed back in his chair, the full weight of his failure crushing down on him. He failed to protect his best friend from a predator who had been sitting across from him in board meetings for 2 decades. Knox Henry had been playing a long game of revenge and manipulation, and Thomas had been blind to all of it. The innocent act of a 9-year-old organizing money just exposed the most devastating betrayal in corporate history, and Thomas realized that everything he built had been poisoned by the man he trusted most. Thomas spent 3 sleepless nights gathering every piece of evidence he could find. 20 years of financial records, forged documents, client testimonies, and email trails that painted a horrifying picture of systematic destruction. His private investigators worked around the clock, uncovering a web of corruption that ran deeper than Thomas ever imagined. When he finally called Knox Henry into his office, Thomas had enough evidence to destroy the man who had destroyed his best friend. Knox Henry walked in with his usual confident smile, adjusting his expensive tie and settling into the leather chair across from Thomas's desk. He had no idea that his decades-long game was about to end. Thomas placed a thick folder on the desk between them, followed by another, then another. Knox's expression slowly changed from confusion to recognition to pure terror as he realized what he was looking at. The evidence was overwhelming and meticulously organized. Forged client contracts with Michael Williams' signature that Knox had created using sophisticated software. Fabricated financial reports showing fake losses attributed to Michael's projects. Bank records revealing bribes Knox had paid to witnesses who testified against Michael's character. Email chains showing how Knox had systematically contacted Michael's clients, spreading lies about missed deadlines and broken promises that had never actually happened. But what broke Thomas's heart most was discovering that Knox documented everything, keeping detailed records of his sabotage like some kind of twisted trophy collection. There were files labeled with victims' names, progress reports on how effectively Knox destroyed their reputations, and even photographs of people he targeted, including one of Michael Williams taken just days before his death. Knox Henry's confident facade crumbled completely as he stared at the evidence of his crimes. With his back against the wall and no way to deny what was right in front of him, he finally confessed to everything. His voice was cold and calculating as he admitted that he'd been systematically destroying anyone who threatened his position in the company for over 2 decades. Michael Williams had just been the first victim, but there had been others. Knox rattled off names of talented employees who'd gotten too close to Thomas, potential business partners who might have influenced company direction, and even board members who'd questioned Knox's decisions. Each person had been carefully eliminated through character assassination, forged evidence, or strategic manipulation. Knox explained his methods with chilling detail. He perfected the art of making good people look corrupt, honest people appear dishonest, and loyal friends seem like traitors. He used Thomas's own trusting nature against him, feeding him carefully crafted lies that seemed believable because they came from someone Thomas considered family. But the confession that made Thomas's blood boil was what came next. Knox revealed that he specifically orchestrated Carmen's hiring because he knew exactly who she was. He'd been tracking Michael Williams's family for years, watching them struggle in poverty while he lived in luxury. Knox had gotten a sick, twisted satisfaction from seeing Michael's daughter reduced to cleaning the floors of the empire her father had helped build. Knox actually started laughing as he described how he enjoyed watching Carmen work multiple jobs, seeing her take night shifts at a diner after cleaning Thomas's house all day. He deliberately kept her wages low through the agency arrangement and had made sure she stayed trapped in the cleaning industry, all while sitting in board meetings and pretending to care about Thomas's well-being. The most disturbing revelation was that Knox had been planning to frame Carmen and Annabelle for theft. He'd been waiting for the right moment to plant evidence and destroy them completely, just like he'd done to Michael. The money test had been part of Knox's larger scheme to eventually accuse them of stealing, which would have sent Carmen to prison and put Annabelle into the foster care system. Thomas realized that his most trusted friend had been his greatest enemy for 20 years. Every piece of advice Knox had given, every recommendation, every business decision had been calculated to keep Thomas isolated and dependent on Knox's manipulation. The man Thomas considered family had been invited to holiday dinners, had trusted with his deepest secrets, had been systematically destroying everyone Thomas might have genuinely cared about. Knox's final words were the most chilling of all. He told Thomas that he'd done it all because he couldn't stand the idea of sharing Thomas's attention or affection with anyone else. Knox had wanted to be the only person Thomas relied on, and he'd been willing to destroy innocent lives to maintain that control. The confrontation ended with Knox Henry's immediate termination, but Thomas wasn't finished seeking justice. He called his lawyers, his accountants, and law enforcement. Within hours, Knox Henry was facing criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and multiple counts of defamation. His assets were frozen, his reputation destroyed, and the story hit national news as one of the most shocking cases of corporate betrayal in recent history. Federal investigators raided Knox's home and discovered evidence of dozens of other victims across multiple companies. Knox Henry's 20-year reign of terror was finally over. But the damage he'd caused to innocent families would take years to fully understand. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see how Thomas made things right with the family Knox destroyed, because what happened next will restore your faith in justice and the power of redemption. How do you think Thomas should handle making amends to Carmen and Annabelle after discovering this 20-year-old betrayal that destroyed their family? Share your thoughts in the comments, because his next decision would change their lives forever. The hardest conversation of Thomas's life began when he asked Carmen to sit down in his study, the same room where her daughter had organized his scattered money just weeks earlier. Thomas's hands shook as he pulled out old photographs and documents, knowing that the next few minutes would completely shatter everything Carmen thought she knew about her family's history and her father's legacy. Through tears he'd held back for 20 years, Thomas began by telling Carmen the truth about her father. He explained how Michael Williams had been far more than just a business partner. He'd been Thomas's best friend, his most trusted confidant, and the most brilliant engineer Thomas had ever known. They'd built the company together, starting in Thomas's garage, working 18-hour days with nothing but dreams, determination, and an unshakable belief in their vision for the future. Thomas showed Carmen pictures of her father from company events, pointing out how Michael's face always lit up with genuine excitement when he talked about their latest innovations. In one photograph, Michael was explaining a new software algorithm to a group of investors, his passion for technology radiating from every gesture. In another, he and Thomas were celebrating their first major contract, both men grinning like children who had just discovered buried treasure. Carmen stared at these images of a father she barely remembered, seeing him not as the broken man who had died in poverty, but as the brilliant innovator who had helped create an empire. Thomas explained how Michael had possessed an almost supernatural ability to solve complex technical problems, how clients specifically requested him for their most challenging projects, and how his integrity had been legendary in an industry known for cutthroat competition. Then came the devastating revelation about Knox Henry's systematic betrayal. Thomas's voice grew heavy with guilt and rage as he explained how Knox had spent months carefully orchestrating Michael's downfall. Knox had forged Michael's signature on falsified documents that made it appear he was stealing proprietary information and selling it to competitors. He'd bribed key clients to make false accusations about missed deadlines and broken promises that had never actually occurred. Knox had even gone so far as to plant evidence in Michael's office, creating fake email accounts that appeared to show Michael communicating with rival companies about trade secrets. The betrayal had been so sophisticated and calculated that even Thomas, despite his deep friendship with Michael, had begun to doubt his partner's innocence as the fabricated evidence mounted. Most heartbreaking of all, Thomas revealed that Michael had died believing his best friend had abandoned him in his darkest hour. Michael had made desperate phone calls to Thomas in his final months, pleading for a chance to clear his name, begging for the friendship they'd shared for over a decade. But Knox Henry had intercepted many of these calls, convincing Thomas that Michael was becoming unstable, and that maintaining contact would only hurt the company's reputation further. Carmen listened in stunned silence as Thomas explained that her father hadn't been the failure she'd grown up believing him to be. The man she'd been told had made bad business decisions and lost everything through his own incompetence had actually been a victim of one of the most calculated and cruel betrayals in corporate history. Her family had suffered in poverty, not because Michael Williams was weak or foolish, but because Knox Henry was a monster who had systematically destroyed an innocent man's life. The weight of this revelation was crushing. Carmen had spent her entire adult life believing that her father's failures had doomed their family to struggle. She'd worked multiple jobs, sacrificed her education, and endured years of financial hardship while carrying the shame of what she thought was her father's legacy of failure. Now she learned that every struggle, every sacrifice, every moment of poverty had been the result of one man's evil manipulation. But Thomas wasn't finished with his revelations. With his voice breaking from emotion and 20 years of suppressed guilt, he told Carmen that her father's original partnership agreement was still legally binding. Michael Williams had owned 30% of the company when Knox Henry had forced him out, and that ownership had never been legally transferred or dissolved. According to corporate law and the original partnership documents, that 30% stake rightfully belonged to Michael's heir. Carmen Mason, who had been cleaning floors for $9 an hour while struggling to pay her daughter's medical bills, was now a multi-millionaire partner in one of the country's most successful technology companies. Her share was worth over $200 million, and she was entitled to decades of back dividends that had been accumulating in corporate accounts. The transformation that followed was nothing short of miraculous. Thomas immediately established the Michael Williams Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting families who had been victims of corporate fraud, workplace discrimination, and systematic abuse by powerful individuals. Carmen became co-director, finally able to use the business education she'd been forced to abandon 20 years earlier, when her father's supposed disgrace had made it impossible for her to find corporate employment. The Foundation's first initiative was to hire a team of investigators and lawyers to identify other victims of Knox Henry's schemes. As the investigation expanded, they discovered that Knox had destroyed dozens of careers over the years, always targeting people who threatened his position or who might have exposed his corruption. The Foundation worked to restore the reputations of these victims and provide financial assistance to families who had suffered as a result of Knox's actions. For 9-year-old Annabelle, Thomas created a special scholarship program named the Michael Williams Educational Excellence Initiative. This program was designed specifically to help children from struggling families pursue their dreams of becoming teachers, providing not just financial assistance but also mentoring, tutoring, and career guidance. The little girl who had organized scattered money with such careful honesty would now have every opportunity to achieve her educational goals, with her grandfather's name honored in perpetuity. The scholarship program quickly expanded beyond just teaching, encompassing support for any child who showed exceptional character and integrity, regardless of their family's financial situation. Annabelle became the program's first recipient and unofficial spokesperson, often speaking to other children about the importance of honesty and how small acts of integrity can have enormous consequences. The most emotional moment in this entire transformation came when Thomas sat down with Annabelle in the same study where this incredible story had begun. He spread out dozens of photographs of her grandfather across the mahogany desk, each image telling a different part of Michael Williams's story. There was Michael at his college graduation, Michael and Thomas shaking hands on their first business deal, Michael presenting innovations at technology conferences, and Michael volunteering at local schools to teach children about computers. Thomas explained to Annabelle how her grandfather had been a brilliant inventor whose ideas had helped create the technology that millions of people used every day. He told her about Michael's kindness, how he'd always made time to help struggling employees, how he donated anonymously to charities, and how he dreamed of using technology to make the world a better place for children like her. Most importantly, Thomas explained to Annabelle that her simple act of honesty, choosing to organize scattered money instead of taking it, had uncovered the truth about her family's history and restored her grandfather's honor. Her integrity had exposed decades of lies, brought justice to a man who had suffered terrible injustice, and proven that good people, no matter how small or powerless they might seem, can ultimately triumph over evil. As Thomas looked at the little girl who had changed his life forever, he realized something profound about redemption and the mysterious ways that life brings healing to old wounds. He'd spent 20 years carrying the crushing weight of guilt over his failure to protect his best friend, that guilt poisoning every relationship he'd tried to build since Michael's death. The loneliness, the suspicion, the inability to trust anyone completely, all of it had stemmed from his knowledge that he'd failed the person who had trusted him most. But Michael Williams's granddaughter had become the key to redemption in ways that seemed almost miraculous. Her innocent honesty had exposed Knox Henry's decades of corruption. Her character had reminded Thomas what true integrity looked like, and her presence had brought the warmth of family back into a house that had been cold and empty since his wife's death. Thomas reflected on the strange and wonderful way that life had brought the Williams family back into his world. Carmen now sat in the same boardroom where her father had once presented his innovations, her intelligence and integrity shining in every decision she made as a company partner. Her ideas for ethical business practices and employee welfare had already transformed the company culture, ensuring that every worker was treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their background. Annabelle visited the corporate offices regularly, already showing flashes of the same innovative thinking that had made her grandfather such a brilliant engineer. She would sit in Thomas's office doing homework while asking thoughtful questions about how businesses could help communities, how technology could solve problems for ordinary people, and how successful people could use their resources to make life better for those who were struggling. The Michael Williams Foundation grew rapidly under Carmen's leadership, helping dozens of families who had been victims of workplace discrimination, corporate fraud, and abuse by powerful individuals. The foundation's investigators had uncovered corruption in multiple companies, leading to criminal prosecutions, civil settlements, and policy changes that protected workers' rights. Carmen's personal experience with injustice made her uniquely qualified to understand and help other victims. The scholarship program in Michael's name had already helped over 200 children pursue higher education, with many recipients going on to become teachers, engineers, and community leaders. Each scholarship recipient received not just financial support, but also mentoring from successful professionals who understood the challenges of overcoming difficult circumstances. The ripple effects of Annabelle's honest act continued to expand in ways that no one could have predicted. Thomas had restructured his entire company to prioritize ethical practices and employee welfare. Carmen had become a sought-after speaker on corporate responsibility and workplace justice. The foundation had inspired similar organizations in other cities, creating a network of support for victims of corporate abuse. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because stories like this remind us that justice, even when delayed by decades, can still triumph over the most sophisticated evil. And that the smallest acts of integrity can have consequences that change the world. What lesson do you think this incredible story teaches us about the power of honesty and how our everyday choices, even as children, can have effects that ripple through generations? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because this story proves that truth really does have a way of surfacing through the most innocent hands, and that sometimes the greatest victories come from the simplest acts of doing what's right. In the end, Thomas learned that sometimes the children of our greatest failures become our path to redemption. A 9-year-old girl's decision to organize scattered money instead of pocketing it had exposed 20 years of lies, restored a family's honor, brought justice to countless victims, and proven that honesty, no matter how small the gesture, has the power to change everything. The truth, as Thomas discovered, always finds a way to surface, often through the most innocent hands of all.